Good.
There we go. Welcome to Golden Speakers Toastmasters of Fairfield, Iowa. It's another Tuesday evening. And this one happens to be May 6th,
Yes.
2014. I'm sitting trainer, no, I'm not acting yet. Anyway, still Sergeant of Arms. We meet every Tuesday evening at 7:40 in the club room at Hy-Vee grocery store. Now please join me in warmly welcoming our club president. But yes, there is one more item. One of these guys, or if you're more technology savvy, you've got a smartphone, could you please put it on vibrate so that our speakers don't get stopped in the middle of their speech and forget their places by having someone's cell phone ring loudly in the audience. Everyone will appreciate it. All right, now let's go back to where I was first headed. Please join me in warmly welcoming our club president, Rhonda Whitaker.
Thank you, Cindy. Cindy is our wonderful Sergeant at Arms. She will be with us for another month, and then she will be taking a little vacation. Now, this portion of the meeting is where I let you know what our mission is for the club. Our mission is to make a safe and positive learning environment in which every member is empowered to develop communication and leadership skills, which in turn build, anybody know?
Self-confidence.
Self-confidence, right?
Personal
And
growth.
personal growth.
Yeah.
Thank you, Seth. Very good. Now, I would like to ask our guests who are here for this evening if anyone would care to stand up and say why they come, how they heard about us. Was it Facebook? Was it a friend? Yes, in the back?
Yeah. My name is David George, and I heard about Toastmasters in like all the classes in school at MUM. And I ran into a friend in the parking lot, so I was getting my groceries, so I had no excuse not to come. So now I'm here, checking it out.
Great.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, George.
Yay!
Welcome. Feel free to come and join us for the table topics tonight. Is there anyone else who's a guest that would like to stand up and say why they came? Kashif?
Yeah, Kashif. I'm an MUM student. I came here like last month in March with my professor. So, most of the guys remember. And today I got a chance again with one of my friends who is a member here. So it's glad to be here.
Very good. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm Sharak, and I came here 2 weeks ago, and today I'm also come here, and also I'm a MUM student.
Thank you, Shah. And we have a couple familiar faces, but I think they're still guests. Do you have anything you want to say today?
Hi everybody, I'm Samantha. I'm an MUM student, and I heard about you guys last fall and have been coming in every now and then, hoping to become a member when I have a 6-month period in Fairfield.
Yeah.
And so that's what's been keeping me back. But thank you, and
You're
it's always a
welcome.
pleasure.
Thank you, Samantha. Luis, did you want to speak?
Hi, my name is Luis. I've been coming to Toastmasters for maybe the past 6 months or so when we were at the other location. I'm still not a member, but I'm definitely going to become a member soon when I come back from summer vacations. And it's always a joy to be here. I always try and get up in the table topics. It's so fun. Got to get something out of while I'm here and listening to everyone. It's wonderful. So,
Thank you, Luis. welcome our chosen Toastmaster of the evening up here, and that would be Diane Denbaum.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm the Toastmaster. My job is to be the hostess of the night, to make sure that everything runs on time and smoothly. The theme tonight is favorite foods. We have a quote from Irma Bombeck, who's an hysterical humorist. I don't know if she's alive or not anymore. I'm not a glutton, I am an explorer of food. Is she still alive? No. She's funny. She was funny. I also keep it running on time, so I'm going to get right into the meeting and introduce the role players. So the first role player is Mahdi Gandari, who's our timer, and he told me his favorite food is mango.
Table topics are 1 to 2 minutes speeches. The green light is turned on at 1 minute. The yellow light is turned on at 1 minute 3 seconds. The red light turn on the 2 minutes and remain on until the end of the speech. Prepared speeches are usually 5 to 7 minutes. The green light is turned on at 5 minutes. The yellow light is turned on 6 minutes. The red light is turned on at 7 minutes and remain on until end of the speech. And evaluation are 3 minutes. The green light is turned on at 2 minutes. The yellow light is turned on at 2 minutes 3 seconds. And the red light is turned on at 3 minutes and remain on until end of the evaluation. Thank you.
The next role is by a man who loves mushrooms pizzas with hot peppers, Louis Denbaum, our grammarian.
Good evening, everyone. As your grammarian tonight, my job is to first of all introduce the word of the evening. The word of the evening is delectable. As an adjective, it means delightful or enjoyable. Also, it means delicious. It can be a noun also, and that means a dish that is especially appealing. Used in a sentence as an adjective, after getting new high-end speakers, my concert DVD sounded delectable. As a noun, the Sunday brunch buffet was filled with delectables. I will look for the use of the word tonight. You get 0 points if you don't use it. You get 1 point if you use it correctly, and you get -1 point if you use it incorrectly.
Okay.
My job is also to look for delectable uses of the English language and improper use of the English language. I am being evaluated tonight in the competent leadership manual for being the grammarian, so I might be a little picayune tonight to find things that you did wrong, so warning. And I'll give a report at the end of the evening.
Will Burns, lover of fish and chips, and also our counter tonight. Will?
Thank you, Diane. Almost feels like a table topic there. As the odd counter, my job is to keep track of the uhs, ums, like, you know, so's, buts, ands, tongue clicks, pauses, xeroxes, or repeats, and false starts. The intention is to make you a better speaker by removing filler words to allow you to more powerfully deliver your message to your audience, which is us, your friends, and your viewers at home. I will give you a report at the end of the meeting, and it'll be great.
Thank you. We'll be hearing from the general evaluator later in the meeting, Seth Braun, who loves chocolate. Thank you for greeting us, Jyoti, and later he'll be telling us a joke, and he loves yummy vegetarian food.
Ha!
And now it's time for the appetizer. There's nothing like a delectable appetizer. And that starts with Jean Symington Craig. So I'll introduce her, who loves trifle. Yum. What's not to love about fruit and whipped cream together? It's delectable. Table topics, impromptu speaking, opportunity to use your brain in a spontaneous manner. I have some questions around the theme, so it's not the whole universe, it's in the universe of our theme. Do I have a volunteer? I'd like to see some new faces. All right, well, I might do Samantha. Is that right? Okay, yes. Come on up. Pick a number between 1 and 5, including 1 and 5. Question. What is your favorite food? And tell us about a special time when this food was in the picture in your life.
I get about 30 seconds, right? Good evening, Toastmasters, honorary guests, viewers at home. My name is Samantha, and I have the privilege of sharing with you my favorite food, mac and cheese, and how this delectable dish has come into my life through many different avenues. So I grew up in a small, tiny little town in Iowa, and I had always been attracted to gooey, yummy things, as you are when you're a kid. And Kraft macaroni and cheese was the first entry of macaroni and cheese into my life and began our love story. And as I traveled from Iowa to Hawaii and all over the United States with my family, we obviously ate at a lot of restaurants, and one of my favorite mac and cheeses is from CPK, California Pizza Kitchen. And just so happened we ordered an appetizer, and it had this really great sweet kind of teriyaki sauce. And as we were sharing it, like as we were passing along the sauce, it dropped onto my mac and cheese, which birthed into my life a brand new companion to my mac and cheese. And so now my favorite food is not only macaroni and cheese by itself, plain and simple, which is absolutely delectable by itself, but accompanied with the sweet and sour, tasty, creamy sauce that happened by accident. And thank you.
Or maybe we're going to get some new ideas here tonight. Another volunteer. You raised your hand here? What's your name? Kashif?
Kashif.
Kashif? Come on up, Kashif. One through 4.
4.
What is your favorite food to prepare? Either cooked or not, but to prepare in a kitchen. And please walk us through what you would do to get the best results for that. We want to take home some of that information tonight. You have up to 30 seconds to think, by the way.
My favorite food, maybe most of the people have listened, who are keen for the Indian and the Asian food, that is chicken karahi. For the people from India who are from MEM, they know what is chicken karahi. So the reason why I love this food is tasty. It's delectable. When it's delectable, you can't resist it. So for me, I have never been resistant to chicken karahi. So how chicken karahi came into my life? When I was a kid, I used to play with the chicken. When you are out of the kitchen, you play with the chicken. So being a small kid, I always loved to fly. Seemed like in 2 weeks back, I had a dog who was trying to fly. So I was very much keen about the birds. So I couldn't find any bird to play with them. So I found the chicken on the street, on the corner. So I was used to play with them. So when a day, I had a fight with a chicken. So from that day, I decided to have a revenge. So I asked my mom, I don't need this chicken in the house. So I want this to be in the kitchen. So that's why I got the chicken out of the street into the kitchen. So my mom prepared the food. That was a chicken karahi. Since that, it's delectable for me. And I want all of you to taste it. It's really delectable. Thank you.
And for those of you that don't know what that chicken curry dish is, including myself, you can please stay so we can ask afterwards
Okay.
what that is. It sounds delicious. Not if you're a chicken though. Okay. Yeah. That's me making, okay, we need somebody on the other side of the generation. Come on up, Art.
Thank you for the lesson.
Okay, pick a number, I think we're 1 to 3.
3.
You have been very bad, and you're going to be executed.
Wow.
You did. Bad, very bad.
Doesn't bother me, it happens all the time.
You can have anything you want for your last meal. Anything you want for your last meal. What will you have?
Mr. Executioner, I need a supply of fresh vegetables and Thai peanut sauce. And a wok. What is there not to like about the lowly peanut? I was raised in America on peanuts, peanut butter specifically, in every available sandwich form that you can imagine. And I still do it. I want to take a side note and answer the question, what is there not to like about fruit and whipped cream? This is the first question that the questioner actually asked. What there is not to like about it is if it's pineapple and whipped cream, or citrus, or a sour fruit, it's not so good with the whipped cream. But grapes, peaches, plum, the sweet fruits. There is one other thing not to like about fruit and whipped cream, and that is 1.5 quarts of it, eaten in one sitting. As good as it goes down, it doesn't sit very well when it gets there. But back to peanuts. I require a wok and a stove and sufficient time to prepare a large dish of stir-fried vegetables over which I can lavish an excellent, mildly hot Thai peanut sauce. The magic of garlic combined with peanut, combined with a little lemon juice and some salt and the other secret ingredients which I haven't learned that go into Thai peanut sauce. It's just, it was a revelation to me when I left America with peanut butter and lettuce sandwiches, peanut butter and raisins, peanut butter and all these great combinations, and came to Southeast Asia and discovered Thai peanut sauce. The universe just opened up.
Okay. That's it? Okay. Mr. Timer, we have 3 people, and did they all qualify? They made it within 2 minutes, 30 seconds?
2 minutes, yeah. 4 people qualified.
And could you just read those names for
Yes.
me?
Samantha, the time was 1 minute, 50 seconds.
Yeah. You don't have to give me the time, just the names of the people, just to remind us of who spoke. Samantha.
Samantha, Kasha, and Art.
Art. Thank you. Thank you. So if you could just go ahead and vote for your best selection there. Now I'd like to welcome up our Table Topics evaluators, Scott Terry.
Let me start with a couple of general themes that I thought were really nice. One is, I love the questions tonight. A really good table topics question really lends itself to this opening. And you could tell how descriptive everybody was. Also, what was nice about it is how Jean laid out the framework for people to sort of get a little bit of the notion of, take a moment, take 30 seconds, get yourself together, and create what you want to create. All 3 people did a really nice job, and everybody greeted the audience. I am controversial about Art's greeting, but I still think it's a good greeting. I'm sorry to say. I'm still giving him a good positive for that. Samantha, you used the word of the day. You greeted everybody. You took some time to think about things. You were very descriptive. You need to work on a couple little things. One, you started off like this. And I was wondering if you were in the military. Like, come on. And then you start to use your arms a little bit, but it's like the same motion. And I thought you were kind of a little frozen in spot. Use the stage. Come out, greet somebody. Use your arms. Use your voice. Say something. And again, lovely topic, lovely descriptive topic, made you really want to really embrace it. Kashif?
Kashif.
Kashif. Oh, that is so cool. I, again, like how you use the word of the day, how you tried to use more arm motions. You needed to do your movements more purposefully. So you're not just kind of like this. Like I thought you were about to bounce a ball or something. Use the space. Use the space. You don't need to also be frozen in spots. Just be kind of going there. Again, lovely how you pulled in the notion of a childhood descriptive to enhance what you're talking about, the food. Really nice. Art, again, great side note. Great greeting to everybody. Couple things, I don't know if it really worked in terms of the side note, to go back to Jean's comment and then to come back again to it. it sort of disrupted the flow, and you lost a little bit from the conclusion. But again, unbelievably descriptive. Really made you want it. What? Don't leave.
Call back up.
Miss.
Okay.
Yes, I'm calling you back up.
Thank you. Just don't leave the
Yes.
Just let the sign.
Okay, yes.
All right. Moving right along, we're now into the main meal, which is our prepared speeches. And our first evaluator, who loves guacamole, is going to read the objectives for Rick Starr. So I'd like to introduce Cindy Trader. Cindy?
The first speaker this evening is Rick Starr. He's speaking from the Interpretive Reading Manual, which is one of the books that can be chosen for your advanced speech after you've finished your first 10 on the competent communicator level. In most Toastmasters speeches, you communicate your own ideas to others. You research and write your own speeches. When you give this speech, you present your own ideas and emotions. As an interpretive reader, doing this manual, you read someone else's writing in this project and communicate someone else's ideas and emotions. Rick is doing the Interpretive Reading Manual's first project called Read a Story. The objectives of this project are to understand the elements of interpretive reading, to learn how to analyze a narrative, and plan for effective interpretation. He's also to learn and apply vocal techniques that will aid in the effectiveness of the reading. Rick is going to read from the book called Nothing by Chance, and will also give a brief introduction. His speech presentation is 8 to 10 minutes long. Please join me in warmly welcoming Rick.
Thank you, Cindy. Fellow Toastmasters, honored guests, and viewers at home. As Cindy mentioned, I'm reading from a book called Nothing by Chance by Richard Bach. Richard Bach is a pilot and an author, and he writes about flying. He writes about the literal experience of flying in his nonfiction books, and he uses flying as a metaphor for his novels. His most famous book is Jonathan Livingston Seagull, which was a huge bestseller a few years ago. And a bit of trivia, Richard lived in Ottumwa while he was writing Jonathan Livingston Seagull. I want to give a little introduction to the section I'm going to read. Right after World War I, in the 1920s, there were plenty of surplus airplanes and plenty of ex-military pilots. A lot of these pilots engaged in what's called barnstorming. And that is a few pilots in these old rickety planes would fly around the country and land in small towns, perform air shows and stunts, and give people rides in these airplanes, and that's how they made their living. Fast forward about 40 years to 1960, when Richard Bach and two of his friends decided to become barnstormers for a summer. They decided to lead this gypsy life. They would fly from town to town through the Midwest, land at small towns, and give rides for money. And the only money they would earn would be the money they could get from selling rides. At night they would sleep under the wings of their airplane, and so they expected it to be a very free life. So the passage I'm going to read is after they've landed at their first town, and they have to drum up business. The only way for a barnstormer to survive is for him to fly passengers, many passengers. And the only way to get passengers is first to attract their attention. We had to make it quite clear
that there was suddenly something strange and wild and wonderful going on at the airstrip. Something that hadn't happened in 40 years and might never happen again. If we could fire a spark of adventure within the hearts of townfolk, we could afford another tank of gasoline, perhaps a hamburger. Our engines burst alive again, bouncing hard echoes off the tin hangar walls, flattening the grass back in two loud mechanical windstorms. Helmets buckled, goggles down, throttles ahead to wide open power, the two old airplanes rolled, thumped, and lifted from green into deep clear blue, hunting passengers as hungrily as wolves hunt dinner. I looked down as we climbed over the edge of town, watching the crowd at the baseball game. At 3,000 feet over the cornfields, we began our death-defying display of aerial aerobatics. Paul's white wings snapped up. I had a quick rolling glance at the bottom of his airplane, streaked in oil and dust, and then he was diving straight down. A second later, the smooth cowled nose pulled up again until his airplane was flying out towards the afternoon sun. Then over on his back, and he was upside down, wheels in the sky, then nose back down to finish the stunt. If he had a smoke flare on board, he would have traced a full vertical loop in the sky. The biplane and I rolled into a great diving turn to the left, pushing down until the wind screamed in the wires. The black-green earth lay full in front of our nose. The wind pounded my leather helmet and set the goggles vibrating in front of my eyes. Then quickly back on the control stick and the ground fell away and blue sky filled the way ahead. Straight up, looking out at the wingtips, I saw the earth sweeping slowly around behind me. And I leaned my helmet back on the headrest and watched the fields and tiny houses and cars moving up from behind until they all stood directly overhead. The world pivoted slowly to come back in front of the biplane's nose, and beneath it again, with the wind screaming in the wires. Across the air, Paul's airplane was standing still in the sky. Its nose pointed straight up, his whole machine a blue-white plumb bob on a long string down from heaven. Then abruptly, it broke its string, pivoted left and pointed down just as straightly. It wasn't all quite as death-defying as our handbills had announced. In fact, there's nothing an airplane can do to be death-defying as long as it stays in its own place, the sky. The only bad times come when an airplane tangles with the ground. From loop to roll to snap roll, the airplanes tumbled over the edge of town, gradually losing altitude. Every minute, a few hundred feet closer to that multicolored earth. At last, the monoplane came whistling toward me like some fast, smooth rocket. And we fell into the authentic Great War aerial dogfight, snarling around in rolls and hard turning spirals and dives and zooms and slow fight and stalls. All the while, as we flew, a white smoke flare waited, tied to my left wing strut. We blurred the world about for a few minutes, juggling it all green and black, and roaring wind from one hand to the other. The houses of the village now standing on this edge, now standing on that. Say we made $200, I thought, What would that be each for all of us? What's 3 into 200? I slid under the monoplane, turned to the left, watched as Paul fell into place behind the biplane's tail. What the devil is 3 into 200? I watched him over my shoulder, rising and falling as he followed. Well, if it was 210, that would be 70 each. $70 each, not counting gas and oil. Say $60 each. In that wild, screaming hurricane of a power dive, I touched the button taped to my throttle. Thick white smoke burst from the left wing, and I traced a death spiral down to the airport, leveling just above the trees. As far as they could tell, that old two-winger had just been shot down in flames. I slipped into land as the smoke stopped and rolled free downhill to the gas pump. One advantage of being shot down first, I thought, is that you always get to the gas pump first.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'd like to now introduce for the second speech, evaluate.
2 minutes.
Take
Val.
2 minutes and evaluate the speaker, sorry. Thank you. Please finish up your last sentence. And now I'd like to bring up the second evaluator. I love making mistakes, I really handle it well. Sheesh. Okay, I'm going to start again. I'd like to invite up avocado-loving Stephanie Chambers, our second evaluate, to introduce the next speaker.
My pleasure tonight to introduce John Miller, who's going to be presenting from the Advanced Manual Speaking to Inform, and he's doing a project called Resources for Informing. The objectives for this speech are to analyse the knowledge level of your audience regarding your chosen subject, focus your presentation at the audience's level of knowledge, build a supporting case for each major point through use of explanation, examples, and information gathered research, effectively use at least one visual aid to enhance the audience's understanding. It's an 8 to 10 minute speech. The title of John's talk is Let's Visit China.
I believe it's 5 to 7 minutes.
And that's what you came planning to do?
Right.
Okay, all right. Good, thank you.
Fellow Toastmasters, guests, and viewers at home. That should be everyone. First, a quiz. What nation, according to Bill Gates, entrepreneur, cut its poverty rate recently over a span of 30 years from 60% to just 10%? China.
Yeah.
What nation invented paper in 50 BC, 1200 years before Europe?
China.
What nation sends the most students to the U.S.? 225,000 last year alone.
China.
What nation has the most bicycles per capita? Wrong.
Netherlands.
The Netherlands.
I said wrong.
Seth gets the prize. Beat them along, you know.
That was good. That was good.
China. People's Republic of China was established in 1949. It is the nation with the largest population, soon to have the largest economy, according to NPR a couple of days ago. and is the largest holder of U.S. Treasury bonds. It behooves us as Americans to know about its culture. You may work with, hire someone, be hired by, study with, learn from, become friends with Chinese people. Who knows, you may even visit China someday. To help prepare you for any of these, I shall touch on China's history, its religions, and a few tips, if you do choose to travel. First, its history. China's culture is the oldest continuous culture in the world, 5,000 years. The traceable lineage of dynasties begins, I should say, in 2100 BC with the Xian dynasty, continuing up to the Qing dynasty in 1911. This, by the way, is the Forbidden City complex in Beijing, if you do choose to visit. Empress Cixi, the only female ruler in China, ruled from 1861 to 1908, the last ruler of the Qing dynasty. Succeeded by Sun Yat-sen, founder of the Republic of China. He served until his passing, 1925, then passed to his son-in-law, Chiang Kai-shek, who served until 1948. In 1948, he became exiled to Taiwan. The leadership passed then to Mao Zedong, leader of the Communist Party, 1949 to 1976, and to Premier Zhou Enlai, 1949 to 76 as well. Why did they both terminate their leadership in 1976? They both died in 1976. Deng Xiaoping became leader after that for about 10 years. Significant event during the leadership of Mao and Zhou Enlai. 1972. What am I talking about? Yeah. President Nixon breaking the ice, visiting China. Pictured with his wife Pat, shaking the hands of Premier Zhou Enlai and shaking the hand of Chairman of the party, Mao. The current leadership, President Xi Jinping and Premier Li Keqiang. Regarding religions, second point, the current leadership turns a blind eye to religions. They tolerate them. About half of the Chinese people follow a veneration of their ancestors, ancestor worship sometimes it's called. About 13% follow Taoism, based on the teachings of Lao Tzu, 6th century BC, Tao Te Ching, Yin and Yang, of course, the famous symbol there that you all probably have seen. Temple of Heaven altar in Beijing, one of the more famous Taoist temples. Whoops. This is called a technical failure. I don't know why. Anyway, let me show a few slides to illustrate Buddhism, presence of Buddhism in China. About 12% of the population follows Buddhism. Pictured here is myself with a monk in a Chinese monastery. Who would have thought China actually has monasteries? Linji Monastery, south of Beijing. Illustrated also Milefo, the Laughing Buddha, in Longxingxi Temple, 600 AD. Guanyin, Goddess of Mercy, multi-armed. Wouldn't it be great to have someone like this around the house to help out with household chores and so forth? And finally, Kangyangshan Temple. Notice the architecture spanning the canyon there. And notice the date, about 600 AD. It's been standing a long time. Beautiful structures. In addition, Christianity and Islam are each followed by about 2% of Chinese. About 12% are non-religious. Confucius taught a philosophy of living, not really a religion as such. With its unique religious and cultural history, China can provide a rich experience for you if you choose to visit. Some tips in case you do. First tip, First tip is don't tip. Don't tip taxi drivers, don't tip restaurant staff, unlike America. Secondly, China has the same population, the same geographical area as the US does, but 4 times the population. So you may not be given the red carpet treatment when you arrive. Don't expect it. However, once the Chinese get to know you, they love you. Third, another technical failure here. We have the photograph. Imagine the photograph here of a delicious, delectable Chinese meal with the chopsticks laying on the plate next to the food, not sticking up like this in the rice bowl. Why not? Because in China this symbolizes death. Not a good thing. I have given you a brief overview of Chinese history, religions, and a few tips if you choose to visit. Why not make the leap? And you too can see a beautiful temple like this. Enjoy yourself. Thank you.
Would you time 2 minutes and we'll evaluate the speaker, please. Welcome back. And I'd now like to invite up duck-loving Jeff Shipley, his favorite food, to introduce the next speaker, Carol Negro.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. Fellow Toastmasters, our honored and distinguished guests, and of course our viewers at home. It is my distinct pleasure and responsibility to offer an evaluation for Carol Negro this evening. She's giving her second speech from the Competent Communicator Manual, Project 2, Organize Your Speech. The title of her talk tonight will be Dreams, and the time will be 5 to 7 minutes. The objectives for this talk is to implement an appropriate outline which allows listeners to easily follow and understand the speech, make the message clear and offer supporting material when appropriate, use appropriate transitions to smoothly flow from one idea to another, and create strong openings and conclusions for her talk. So without further ado, I'd like to bring up Carol.
Madam Toastmaster, Toastmasters, guests, and audiences at home. My topic tonight is about dreams. And I would like to say that most of my dreams were delightful, enjoyable, or delicious, or delectable. But in general, I don't have taste sensations with my dreams. I think dreams are a succession of ideas, emotions, and sensations that occur in our minds and our hearts. I've made and had many dreams in my life, and I've tried to make most of them come true. Most of them have demanded courage and determination from me. And I believe that I learned and I developed some of those qualities by realizing a childhood dream. I had a brother, David, who was number 4 of 6 children in my family. I was number 1. When David was born, my mom was ill with tuberculosis. Unfortunately, my mother's illness impacted my brother's health and immune system, and he grew up with severe allergies and asthma. Being the oldest of the kids, it was my responsibility to help take care of David, and I did so. While we were growing up, David and I became very close, and I always had a dream that David and I would take a trip someday. Shortly after my 21st birthday, I purchased a 1964 Ford Galaxy Cruise-O-Matic. It was quite a prize for me and really a wonderful thing, and I all of a sudden had a car. And as soon as I got it, I decided it was time for David and my trip. He agreed, and my parents granted us permission. So we put our heads together and decided that we would take a camping and a hiking trip south of San Francisco down the coast to Big Sur. We chose the location because of its great beauty and dramatic landscape. I'd taken a trip there in my high school days, and I remember the experience that it gave me, the gifts of wonder, dreams, and endless possibilities that I experienced. I treasured my time there and the sense of being at one with the universe, which I felt. And I wanted to share it with David. Big Sur is part of the California coast, which is in the Los Padres National Forest and the Ventana Wilderness. The coastal road, Highway 1, which one must travel to get to Big Sur, is very windy and twisty, and it sits about 1,000 feet above the coast. And below that coast, while you're driving down this twisty, windy road, is nothing but a sheer set of granite cliffs which slide immediately down into the ocean. So while you're driving, the whole time you're driving, you feel this sort of kind of tension but beauty for this immense landscape that you're experiencing the whole time you're traveling. But at the same time, your eyes are glued to the road so that you don't slip off it. David and I had a lot of wonderful memories from that trip. Campfires, whale watching, elephant seals mating, Californian condors flying over, the redwoods and lush ferns and orchids on the mountainsides. But one of those memories stands out in particular. Was David and I decided that we would take a hike. And the hike that we were taking was one that I had found in a book. And it described this wonderful hike, but the culmination of this hike was hiking 3 miles up the side of a mountain and getting to the top of the mountain to seeing this overviewing landscape of the California coast. We took the hike, we got up to the top, but it was a very, very foggy day. So the whole time up, it was completely foggy, and we could see nothing. Except that when we got to the top of the mountain, then there was this amazing display of clouds with the sun coming over them and shooting through the moisture in the clouds and projecting this wonderful fog bow over the landscape. We sat there and we watched it, we had a delectable meal, and then we decided it was time to go down the hill. Well, we didn't time it quite right, and by the time we started going down the hill, the sun started to set, and it became dark, and we lost our way down the hill. But it was winter and the moon rose early, so I knew the moon was in the west, and the way to get down the hill was to follow the moon. So we tripped and we trampled, and we had an amazing amount of crazy things happen to us as we fell down the hill. But we got down to the bottom. But the problem was when we got down to the bottom of the hill, there was no car because we weren't on the trail. So my brother and I looked and we tossed a coin. And as we tossed the coin, we had to decide whether we were going south or north to get home with the car. So we picked north, we traveled up the road, and all of a sudden this beautiful windy road with this wonderful, fantastic landscape became a complete nightmare. Because all of a sudden we were traveling up this road and we were walking in between, well, actually walking on the yellow line and not knowing when a car was going to come or not come and hit us. Because you couldn't see it and you couldn't, it was winding and you had no idea. Well, eventually we did make it back. About 2.5 hours later. It was a long trip. And this dream, which was a dream, became a moment of courage for me. And it was, you know, you don't think of it immediately after it happens because there's such a sense of relief when you hit your destination. But at the end, it was a fantastic thing. My brother had another dream, which was always to go a 5+ river. And he did accomplish that dream, and he lost his life. But it's all poignant and it's memorable, and thank you.
Please take 2 minutes to evaluate the speaker. Timer. Welcome back. We're now going to vote for the best speaker, and I'll ask the timer now. Timer, did everyone qualify, please?
Just for qualifying.
So we had one speaker qualified, Rick. The other 2 people went over the top. Okay, so that we will not need to vote for the best speaker. So moving right along, I'm going to invite chocolate-loving Seth Braun up, and he's going to do dessert, which is appropriate.
Dessert.
Seth Braun, get
Fellow Toastmasters, guests, viewers at home, it's my job to close the meeting by hearing from our evaluators and then evaluating the whole meeting. So I'd like to begin by welcoming up our first evaluator to kick it off, Cindy Trainer.
Mr. General Evaluator, fellow Toastmasters, honored and distinguished guests, but most especially Rick. How many people became mesmerized by the story? Can I see a show of hands? Oh, thank goodness, I wasn't alone. Thank you very much for helping me out here, because I got so wrapped up in your story. I'm looking at the evaluation book later and said, oh my gosh. I didn't take very much notes because I was so wrapped up in your story. What I did see and hear was a wonderful reading of an author that also happens to be dear to my heart. Your theme was the theme from the book was understandable and storyline clear. For me, what I got out of it was the writer of the story was so looking forward for a whole summer of freedom in the sky and this great adventure that he and his partners were going to undertake. I believe you achieved a high level of projecting that meaning and the purpose and the emotions of the message. I really had to chuckle about the landing, that you get shot down, you get the first in line for the gas tank. I have to admit that I don't have a current pilot's license, but I have a pilot's license. And that's another reason why I got lost in the story, because while I'm listening to you, memories of my own personal experience were coming up to be re-examined. You built the story to the climax. My suggestion would be if you started speaking at your normal rate, and as the story moves along, especially when they went into the chase scene and he's got his finger on that button to hit the flare, I suggest you speed up your rate of speaking. Not to the point where words blur together, but you could say as he snapped through the rolls, he went faster and faster, you know, something like that, to add more drama and more tension to the talk. I liked how you used the pause in between your major points in the story. That really allowed us to think about it. Your introduction was very good and set up the whole story before you read it, and I really enjoyed that part. And you were able to establish and maintain eye contact throughout your talk, even with your defining and your barrel rolls and spins. I look forward to the rest of the stories in this from this manual, and thank you very much for your speech tonight. Mr.
Thank you, Madam Evaluator. Next, we're going to hear from Stephanie Chambers. Warmly welcome, Stephanie Chambers.
Fellow Toastmasters, honoured guests and viewers at home. I'm sure after hearing John's talk, we all feel very knowledgeable about China. We learned a lot of things that we may not have known before. And I thought it was an interesting technique of John's to do the quiz at the beginning, because that was his way to find out how much the audience knew. And it was also part of the way the last question, after so many that the answer was China, was actually the Netherlands, which really added some humour. So that was great. John used a lot of facts and photos and lots of history to give us a taste of the research he had done on China. He used the visual aids, as I mentioned, the photos projected. He also, I really liked the use of the chopsticks, the actual chopsticks in the bowl. There's nothing more visual than the actual tangible item. That was great, and I think we all will remember that that's the death symbol from now on. We're playing with our chopsticks at the end of our meals. So that was great. I thought it was obvious that John had done a lot of research, and I'm sure I felt it was adequate, and it really suited the level of audience knowledge. In terms of how you communicated these facts, I thought you did a good job, but there were a couple of times when I felt you were a little bit wandering, but in some ways I think it could have been because you were having technical difficulties and you had to keep going back over to get the projector to work on that side, so maybe that was the reason. But if you could have, used the stage for the first points and then the second points, third points on the other side, it would have been better. The only thing I felt a little disappointed, well, I found it was interesting at the beginning when you mentioned the fact that China has so much power and that so much of America's debt is held by China. And I thought, oh, that sounds interesting. Where is it going to go with this? And I think, for my personal taste, I think it would have been a more powerful speech if you had taken us more down that route about China's power, rather than kind of blending that sort of thing with the travel tips, because I think it's better if you decide to go one way or another. It's sort of history and then it was sort of travel tips. So I think it would have been better to decide on a focus, and personally I think it would have been more interesting to just focus on how powerful China is in the world today, and I can tell you know a lot about it. But overall it was a great speech, and I think we all learned a lot. So thank you.
Evaluator. And finally, our last evaluator is Jeff Shipley. Help me warmly welcome Jeff Shipley. Thank you, Seth. Fellow Toastmasters, honored distinguished guests, viewers at home, especially Carol. So first, you shared a very meaningful and personal story about you and your brother wandering around in California, going hiking, adventure. I really like speeches like this because they allow us to relate to some of your experiences, and then we learn more about you. We learn kind of things that you get excited about in life. I guess I'm just going to dive right into some things where I think you can improve on. Because to me, it's obvious you have a lot of beautiful, wonderful things going on in your head, and of course the next step is being able to communicate that to a larger audience so we can all benefit from your ideas. So first thing that I noticed right away was your hands in the pocket. And then you seem, I think there were some items, perhaps some car keys in your pocket. So first thing you do is make sure nothing's in your pocket when you come up here to speak, so you're not tempted to play with anything. Because I could hear it rattling when I was in the front row, and obviously that's going to distract from your message. So that's just one simple thing you could do. Also, when you first came up here, when you first started, you seemed a little bit unsettled to begin your speech. A great technique that a lot of speakers use to really become comfortable in where they are is just take a deep breath right before you begin. Maybe two if you need it. Really own this space, collect your thoughts so you can really come out and start delivering your message passionately to get the audience involved. And then also, again, just use the stage in general. You seemed a little bit frozen beyond here. You had some good gestures around here, but you were talking about hiking and going down mountains and exploring the countryside. I feel there was room to really get out and use the stage as it was relevant to what you were talking about. And again, in terms of the manual is concerned, I think you did a very satisfactory job in accomplishing the goals of an organized speech. And you spoke about some really heavy, I think, important things. I mean, the introduction was about accomplishing and fulfillment of dreams. Obviously, I would hope that resonates with everyone. It's important stuff. It needs to be communicated. And of course, by sharing your experiences, the audience can learn a tremendous amount about themselves and you. And again, I guess, and another tip, just for the organization aspect, is really giving a crisp outline at the beginning in terms of the introduction of introducing what you're going to say it, and then tell them again in the conclusion what you just told them. And make it real crisp and go on and just make it as clear as possible so we know, and that'll make it easy to follow. What I like most about your speech, and I was sitting in the front row so I had a great view, is you could tell during the narrative the times that were nearest and dearest to your heart. You could almost see you remembering these things, and you could tell because you had a big smile on your face. You could tell by the vocal inflection of your voice and the rate and the tempo in which you're sharing these things. And so when the point of the story is most important to you, it really showed just on your passion, enthusiasm, and body language. And if you could keep that up for the whole entire speech, you're going to be a really dynamic speaker. You're going to have the audience at the edge of their seats the whole time. So those are some things to work on. And again, I really appreciate you being here. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Jeff, for that evaluation. Now it's time to vote. Little white slips. But first, did our evaluators qualify?
Yes.
All of them qualified. Scott, Jeff, Cindy, and Stephanie.
Yeah.
And we're back. Now we get to hear from the role players. And this is, I think, a wonderful opportunity to speak. You know, we're here to speak, and when you're a role player, you get to actually practice your speaking. So first we're going to hear from our timer, Mehdi.
All of the speaker qualified and expect Rick and John, but I read the name and the time. Stephanie, 1 minute 50 seconds. Kasha, 1 minute 44 seconds. Art, 2 minutes 17 seconds.
I think the first one was Samantha.
Samantha. Yeah. Rick, 8 minute 35 seconds. John, 8 minute 4 seconds. Coral, 7 minute 58 seconds. Scott, 3 minutes 17 seconds. Cindy, 3 minutes 21 seconds. Stephanie, 2 minutes 50 seconds. Jeff, 3 minutes 25 seconds.
Thank you. our grammarian with his delectable report.
Good evening, everyone. The word of the day was used by the delectable Diane Denbaum, Jean, Samantha, Kashif, John, Carol, and Seth Braun. So as I told you, I'm going to try and be a little picky with some of the mistakes of the evening. John, you used one of my pet peeve word mistakes, and that's the misuse of myself. Myself is reflexive. It's when you're doing something to yourself. I washed myself, I dressed myself. You used pictured here as myself instead of pictured here as me. Jeff. Jeff, you said objectives is instead of objectives are. And then you also said, I guess I'm going to jump in. Okay? I don't think you need the I guess. You know what you're doing. I'm going to jump in. Jane, you can slap me around after the meeting if this isn't something you like. You said vote for your best selection. Okay? Seems a little awkward to me, voting for the best table topic, vote for the best person. Scott, you used the word twice. You need to do this, you need to do that. When you're an evaluator, I would rather see you use the word I suggest.
Yeah.
Okay. Good usage. Samantha, gooey, yummy. My love story with mac and cheese birthed into my life. Art, I loved executioner. I have no qualm with that one. That was perfect.
It fits you.
The lowly peanut. Wow. And the magic of garlic. I love those. Richard Bach is not a member of our club, so I'm not going into any of his incredible uses of the English language. Rick said, lead this gypsy life of flying from town to town. John, it behooves us to know more about China, veneration of their ancestors for a religion, and first tip is don't tip. Carol, I loved her description of the Ford Galaxy, quite a prize for me. And you used the word dramatic landscape. And Cindy, thank God I wasn't the only one.
Now we're going to hear from our O'Connor. I hope you bring the thunder as well.
Seth, I will not bring the thunder. I'm like Lewis. I have to commend you on your excellent use, or rather your lack of filler words. There's just a few spots here and there, but all in all, I'm very impressed with all of you. You can go home and sleep tonight soundly. Thank you, Seth.
Now we're going to hear from our joke master, Jyoti Raj Adhikari, joking it up. Come on down, Jyoti Raj.
Okay, I have two jokes. I'll try to fit it in 1 minute. A few old couples used to get together to talk about life and to have a good time. One day, one of the men, Harry, started talking about this fantastic restaurant. He went to that other night with his wife. Really? One of the men said, "What is it called?" After thinking for a few seconds, Harry said, "What are those good-smelling flowers called again?" "Do you mean a rose?" The first man questioned. "Yes, that is it." Looking over his wife, he said, "Rose, what's that restaurant we went to the other night?" The second one. A man died and went up to the heaven. Upon arriving, he noticed two signs. One said, "Men who are bossed by their wives." The other one said, "Men not bossed by their wives." After closer inspection, he noticed that while next to the first sign was a big line, By the second sign, there was just one man standing. After getting even closer, he realized it was his friend Harry. Hey Harry, the man questioned, what in the world are you doing here? Your wife bosses you around more than anybody. Harry said, I don't know. My wife told me to stand here.
Well, as general evaluator, I'll make some comments about the meetings. And first I'm going to make general meta comments, and then I'll make specific comments for the evaluators. I'd like to first comment on the counter sheet. I would like to motion that the officers of Golden Speakers amend the counter sheet to take out the word pause. The word pause is not a filler word. Pause is not a filler word at all. That sends a mixed message because we're telling people to pause in evaluations. And then it says, we'll be looking for pauses. That's just confusing, and we just need to eliminate it. So I'd like to make a motion that you as officers discuss this at the meeting and do what you need to do to handle this.
I ran on that platform.
You ran a good race. I'd also like to bring attention to something that was brought to my attention by Tom and Jean and many other Toastmaster mentors throughout the last 5 years, and that's a few etiquette items. The first one is if someone comes up from this side and is coming up to the stage, like Diane sitting here, Stephanie came up, shook her hand. Instead of Diane going around Stephanie like this and coming to her seat, Diane walked off this way, walked around the whole meeting, like this, excuse me, walked back here, not to interrupt the camera, not to interrupt anything going on over there, and came and sat here. Why? Because you don't want to have this thing where you're doing like the, because this is where the action is. We want it smooth, we want it moving around. This is where the wheel of the ship is, and you want to shake people's hand. That's the other piece. So for new people, you might not be aware of this, but everything in Toastmasters happens right around here. In this kind of general space, there's this. Okay. And finally, with etiquette and protocol, we want to just touch on acknowledging the person that just came up. Mr. General Evaluator, Madam Toastmaster, Madam Evaluator, etc., so that the person leaving, you've just acknowledged them. This is the etiquette and protocol and convention of Toastmasters. Why do we do this? Because it's Toastmasters! It's not having buffet at Hy-Vee. It's not, hanging out with your friends. It's just what we do. It's cool. Now, specifics. Scott, you gave recommendations and accommodation to everybody. Great. Thank you for doing that. I would say give less to people who aren't members who are speaking for their first time. Because you gave 3 suggestions to Samantha and 2.5 to Kashi. So just give them 1. If they're beginners, just give them 1 thing and lavish lots of praise. That's what I would suggest. Other than that, what I loved was enthusiasm. You put a lot into your evaluations. You put your whole self into it. You throw kind of a visceral experience. And I love that. I don't always agree, but I love it. Next we had, I don't know, I don't have my agenda here, but I think it was Cindy in order. Cindy, I would like to acknowledge your engaging the audience by asking a question when you started. How many of you remember? She engaged the audience. And then she did this dramatic gesture. Oh, I'm not the only one. And so here's what thank you. Love the dramatic gesture, love the engagement, the energy, the enthusiasm. We need that. But what I would suggest is you've got to pay attention. Now, I gave you a little leniency because you were a pilot. But still, you got to pay attention. I mean, that's your job as the evaluator. Next, Stephanie. I'd just say the introduction, when you're introducing someone, you just read the objectives and kind of did this. I would just add, please warmly welcome. And for everybody in this space, when you come up, start right from the beginning of your talk or evaluation, start with projection. Because what I'm noticing is that people starting here, hello, how you doing? And by the end, they're kind of engaging. but for Stephanie and for a lot of other folks, project a little more in this room. It kind of eats up sound. You did a lot of things really well. You acknowledged, you had specifics. Thank you. Finally, Jeff. There it is. Jeff. I love Jeff. You did the intro so well. You said, it's my pleasure to welcome up. Then you read the objectives and you said, please warmly welcome, or something to that extent. Nice, succinct introduction. You had a lot of energy. You had general comments, specific comments. Yes, thank you very much.
There was an agenda here. Does anyone know where it went?
Jyoti Raj may have taken it.
Jyoti, the joke master.
I'm joking.
Yes.
Nice joke.
Thank you. This is our guide. Our reports. Good. It's time for the award section. So let's hear that drum roll for best table topics. And tonight that is Samantha.
Yay!
And drum roll, our best speaker is Rick Starr. Finally, our best evaluator, Jeff Ship. And Carol, I'd like to acknowledge you for Competent Communicator Speech number 2. I'd like to end now by calling up our, if she could eat it, pecan pie loving Rhonda Whitaker.
It's a wonderful night tonight for some exciting speakers. I do want to mention that we need to find out who is in charge of our template for the R counter, because the officers did vote to get rid of pause, but I don't know who makes up those sheets. And we have sheets left over with the pauses on them that we will use. We will cross them off now that everybody knows pause is something we love to do. Now, I have a question here.
There was a template that I had created that didn't have pause on it. Then this new one got created. I could look to see if the original I have, and if I do, I'll be happy to make copies.
Yeah.
I won't know till I go home and make sure it's still on my computer.
Okay. That's a plan.
Otherwise, I can probably
Thank you,
make something
Diane.
up. Okay.
Thank you. Now, Tom and Cindy Traynor are long-term members of the club. They're going to take their first sabbatical leave here, May through November. And they're going to be leaving any day, as soon as their boat can leave. They need someone to haul the boat to New York. So, we're waiting on a date for them to go, but before they go, I would like to ask if we could do a potluck here next Tuesday and make table topics about boats or about something Tom and Cindy have done to teach us in Toastmasters. I would like to make a motion that next week we include a potluck in honor of Tom and Cindy and all they've done for the club. Is there a second?
Second.
Great.
What time?
We would be meeting here same time, same place next week with table topics around you, to honor you, and have social get-together afterward with snacks and refreshments. All in favor? Raise your hand. Aye. Aye.
So we're going to start late.
All opposed? Tom?
What time are we intending to start the potluck?
It's snacks and stuff after the meeting, not like dinner, right? You're not talking about dinner.
Well,
Snacks or dinner? I didn't get
snacks, not
Oh,
dinner.
that's fine. I get it.
Okay, so snacks are okay,
Got
Tom?
After the meeting.
Okay, all right, yes, the ayes have it, we will do that next week. And I'd like to ask our guests if anyone would like to say something about their experience tonight, if there's something they particularly enjoyed.
Short.
Just a short thing. Okay, the good, bad, and the ugly. Nobody has comment. All right, now we will adjourn until next week.
Yay!